You're listening to REIA Radio, the nationally trusted name in real estate investing. We dig deep to discover investors' why in real estate. If you want to skip all the BS and get in investors' heads, you're in the right spot. Be one of the thousands to check out REIARadio.com.
I feel like there is a hole not being filled in the Hispanic community. So my book would be in Spanish. If you can give the people like a template to just follow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and some options here and there, outliers and stuff like that. But if you can outline that for people, I think that they'll be successful. And I don't think a lot of people have that content in Spanish.
This episode is brought to you by JM Real Estate Capital.
Hi, it's Rob, JM Real Estate Capital. We're the money guys that you need to know for all your real estate investments. Talk to us. We can do what your local bank can't or won't do. We don't have millions. We have trillions with a T to lend. 844-WE-CLOSE or go online, jmrecapital.com. That's jmrecapital.com. JM Real Estate Capital, smart solutions for the real estate investor.
Welcome to REIA Radio, episode 177 with JosePeña.
One of our few returning guests that we've had on the show. We cherry pick these for the listeners here. Episode 5, man. This has been a long time, 3.5 years, and we've got a lot to unpack with this story of yours, Jose. The first thing I want to know is, you were gainfully employed the last time we sat down at the old studio.
Memories.
The memories.
Oh, the memories.
And no, I'm curious because a lot of people love the idea of investing in real estate, but they can't figure out how to make the leap into a full-time big boy real estate investor type of setup. If you look back on the decision you made to leave your job, do you think the timing was right? Is there anything you regret or you would change about that decision?
I love that.
That's a good question. I wouldn't regret leaving the job at all. I don't look back at it. And I even, if you ask me, sometimes I get confused in regards to when I actually quit, because it's been full of real estate after that. Right. So I think it was just the right point in time. I had a little background in real estate at that point. I had enough propellers on the back, to keep going and kick off that new part of my life, which is full-time real estate investor. And I had the support of my wife. The proof of concept was there, so it was a good point to just go full throttle.
AKA, they're about to fire him because of his side jobs. It was taking more time than his main job.
He's making it sound all noble, and they're like, they slide my piece of paper. He's like, I quit. You can't fire me.
I'm like, before you get a word in, here's my paper.
I'm out.
No, okay. Now, what I'm curious about though is, did you have a bunch of deals in the pipeline or anything that gave you the confidence to do that? So you're not just, like, I quit. Oh shit. What do I do now?
What I actually did, I cut my salary in half by quitting.
Okay.
I knew, I was making about $6,000 or something like that a month. So I'm like, if I can make half of that, I'd still be good in my life. My wife, we'd use her income as well. She continues to work right now full time.
What's she do?
She's a social worker in the Omaha.
So she's
public
raking
schools.
it in.
Oh, awesome.
Oh man, she's got a big room on the
Big fat paycheck.
My wife's a
every month.
teacher. I understand that wife.
Yeah. It's good. She went through her master's, so she gets a little bit of a bump. So that helps. But we basically agreed, like, hey, I can bring in this much for sure. I wouldn't be able to bring in the full amount that I was bringing in as a software engineer. But at that point, we would concentrate, and it was more about the generational wealth. Like, if I start right now, I know the ceiling is just way higher on the real estate side instead of the software development side, unless I came up with like a badass app, which I tried to a couple of times, but it's just it's a hit or miss, with software and the apps and all of that stuff. And I know real estate is a very tangible, and I know the numbers, and I can estimate, how much I can bring in every project pretty much.
So you've acquired a bunch of rentals, and we'll dig into that obviously. But were you flipping houses along the way too? Did you have a real estate license? Like, what were some other ways you were making income other than just the rental income that you had coming in?
So it was through flips. Even though I have my GC license, I don't necessarily use it as like a servicer. You know, I don't really help out other people with their projects unless it's like a really close friend or somebody that's in a really tight spot. That's when I help them out. But it's usually just for my own stuff. But I do flips quite a bit. And actually this year, we transitioned a little bit more towards flips just because of the high interest rates and stuff like that. It was harder to make things cash flow. And we were also, I was a little bit tired of the delayed gratification type of stuff. So I wanted to bring in more money and just do more stuff and feel a little bit less tight on the money with rentals and the burrs. You know, sometimes you break up even with the refinance, right? So with the flips, I knew I could bring in more money, even though it's a little bit more tax heavy. But at the same time, it's just like I didn't care. And a lot of the projects that I had at that point that were coming to me were mostly for flips, even though I did keep quite a few rentals as well. But
did you kind of just cherry pick the ones that you wanted to keep because they fit your geography that you liked and your kind of parameters around cash flow and those kind of things? And then you're like, these other ones don't fit that box, so I'm going to sell them.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just, if I can make them cash flow, then I usually keep them as rentals. If they don't really cash flow, and I don't really like to play the appreciation game right now, I feel that's more of a, I guess, down the road type of thing. You know, when I have excess cash just laying around, if I can pick a really nice property in a really nice area, great, I'll keep it. But right now it's trying to keep the ball rolling and the snowball effect going as well.
So you also run a local REIA that's all Spanish speaking. What kind of advice are you giving to your members that are asking you the question of, what's the best time that I should be getting out of working my day-to-day job and going into real estate full time? Are you giving the same advice that you took?
So I am the kind of guy that's always going to be like rentals for just the generational part, right? I feel like as a Hispanic, you know, we come in here, and just like the American dream is owning a home, I feel like for me, it's building that generational wealth or having that nest egg or safety on the background to have those assets for the future, right? So I always push for rentals. And the main thing that I try to do is just let people know that there are other people out there that can help you run numbers on projects. Basically, go out there, look for opportunities. If you see an opportunity, it's provide that network for people to bounce off ideas and brainstorm if it's even a deal, right? And a lot of people are like, well, flips because of the money, right? But at the same time, I want to kind of nourish the idea of that generational wealth.
So you started a Hispanic REIA. How many members of that do you have now? Is it still active? Like you have monthly meetings and that kind of thing, or is it whenever you can do it?
So it is active. It hasn't been active for the last 3 months or so, 3 times, because we had a baby, all of that kind of stuff.
Congrats. Little baby boy, right?
Baby boy, yeah. Alexander is his name. Just awesome. The most beautiful creature you've ever seen. The way he looks at me every morning, you know, asking for his milk, is just, it's the biggest accomplishment of my life at this point. And I'm really excited about that. And I really wanted to put everything on the back burner. We still do, you know, projects here and there. Not here and there consistently, but with the other stuff, it's just like I want to concentrate on my family and my business. But now we're coming into this new year, so I want to get that up and running again, especially because I've had people come up to me and be like, hey, I got my first rental. I did my first flip. So it's been very rewarding from that side of things, right? To me, it's a life changing. You know, it's you put people on this path of success. It's nice.
How many members do you think you have roughly?
I'd say I've had probably like 50, 60 people. On the biggest event, I think we had like 45 people show
Okay.
up.
Yeah, that was probably the one I spoke at. What now? Anything? Okay, you two run the two biggest REIAs in Omaha, and so Ted, you have the Omaha REIA, you have the Hispanic REIA in Omaha. Jose, what are some things, like, let's say somebody catching this is in a town that doesn't have one. What do you think you did right? What would you change? How does somebody put a community like that together that you get, the satisfaction of seeing members succeed, and you probably get connections and deals and all kinds of other stuff out of it? Like, what, Jose, what do you think?
To me, it's I wanted to feel comfortable with my knowledge before starting the REIA, but that's just me, right? Somebody could just start that if they have the right connections. If you feel comfortable hosting, bringing in somebody that can speak for the majority of time, that has the knowledge, that's perfect. But for me, I wanted that knowledge just to be able to fill in.
Did you have imposter syndrome a little bit when you were putting that together?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit, and I feel bad even speaking myself. Sometimes when there's no speakers, but I just feel like there was a need in our community, especially because we see so many Hispanics working in the construction field here in Omaha. Pretty much everywhere you go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have the knowledge of the construction side of things, but they didn't have the knowledge on the investment side of things, right? So I wanted to fill in that gap and just try to do what the Omaha REIA and the Omaha Real Estate Meetup did for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like a gift back type scenario, right? Because if those two communities help me be where I am right now, if I could help someone do the same, to me, it's just it was a no-brainer, but it got delayed quite a bit.
I remember trying to talk you into this, and I'm like, we need somebody that is doing it, that can be the voice. And my take on this was, and at least in the Hispanic community, and from the outside looking in, it just seemed like there was no leader in this category. You have so many Hispanics that were doing the construction and being hired out for all types of work, but there was nobody being the unity and teaching people that there's a different path. And that was at least that was the conversation I was having with you. And that was me from the outside looking in, and I could have been totally wrong, but I felt like you were very receptive to a lot of those conversations. And I was like, Jose, you're the right person. I've actually had 3 people reach out to me, and you knew about that wanted to start a group with my assistants. And I was like, oh no, there's only one right person for this. And, it was just, it was the right person was you, and you just done a great job with it. And I think that in any, community that you're listening to, it doesn't matter what your skin color is or your language, there needs to be a community for this to bring people together and have those conversations. And, I was blessed I was able to take over this group and be able to create the connections, but imposter syndrome weighed heavy on me, and I
still does.
And I had those conversations with, Owen and Colin and a few other guys, Brad Bader. And I'm like, who am I to stand in front of all you guys? Like, I've been sitting in this room with you guys for the last 5 years. And, I was never, I'm still not at that category that any of these guys are, but I do know that my superpower is networking and bringing people together. And so it's not about me speaking. It's about what I can do to bring the people together and bring knowledge. Have a safe community where there isn't somebody trying to be a guru and steal from them.
Right.
What's the biggest pain in the ass about running a group like that? Getting speakers to commit?
Planning.
Speakers.
Planning and the speakers. Yeah.
And there's a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of cost to putting an event together. Like,
there is, if you get it to the level you're at. I mean, you don't have to do that. You could do a baller on a budget, in a coffee shop.
But once a group gets a certain size, then you have to start renting facilities, and then you
worry about food and drinks
and live streaming and camera crews, and then running the front door. I mean, it started off, pretty basic, but towards the end there, I mean, now it costs me several thousands of dollars to do an event.
Who did you go? So Ted, I don't even know if it's arguably. I think I would guess you probably run one of the most successful, well-run REIAs in the country. I mean, I don't think you can disagree with me on that.
I know I went to a couple of other REIAs and around the country and was pretty amazed by how crappy it was.
Yeah. Well, that's where I'm going with this is like, how did you know what to even do? What did you know was right? What was wrong? Like, did you reach out to the national REIA? Like, what was
I was a member for 5 years. And I and I just did what I didn't. I saw what I didn't like, and I seen what I did like, and I did party promotions for almost a decade, and in my 20s, and I just said, hey, this is just like creating a party. You want to create something where people can have fun, but also have it engaging, and then if I had a club event and I was selling tickets at the door, I don't want to sell $100 tickets because $100 tickets don't bring people. I want as many people in the room as I possibly can, so I'll keep my tickets low. But you got to provide a value for them to keep coming back, right? So you got to charge them something, but you want your sponsors to be able to cover all the costs. And I didn't want gurus, because I remember there was another meetup group, and I sat with a lady before I did this, and she's like, they had this speaker come in. I had to go to Las Vegas, and then I've mentioned this before. And once they went to Las, it was $500. And then it was $1,000, and then it was $10,000, and then, we're gonna get you in the big program, and in the big program we guarantee you finding a property, and we'll take care of getting all the credit, but it's gonna be $80,000,
and we'll teach you how to max out your credit cards
Yep.
and get new ones to pay for it.
And they took out, that's what they did the contract, and they actually had 8 0% credit cards that they maxed out for her as part of the program.
Dude, how do you not feel like a sleaze bag when you're putting on something like that? I mean, no offense to those who do, but I'm pointing at you, whoever you are. Like, that just seems, I don't know, man. It just seems gross to me.
And here's the deal. It wasn't the meetup that did that. It was the speaker. It was the guru that came and spoke that did it. But then that particular group was reimbursed by the guru, like 50% of the money that they get off each person. But then that person ended up getting this house in like Plattsmouth, Nebraska. And then they referred a contracting crew. They came in, and then she took a mortgage against her house to get the contract, to get that done, because they advised it. And then, they didn't finish the job. They walked off. So she ended up with a condemned house that was half torn apart because of this add-on that was getting add-on. They didn't cover the roof. And then, she's like, comes to me crying about this. And, I'm like, this isn't right. And on top of that, if you bring these gurus in, the people sign up for this service and then they never come back. And so that is the biggest reason that most of these meetups have such a huge turn on members. See, 40, 50, 80% of their membership gone every year.
You can shear a sheep over and over again. You skin them once, type thing. Yeah. Well, that's a good tip. But we won't spend much more time on this, but I just personally, in going to these, I have met all of my business partners except for one by going to Omaha Real Estate Meetup, the Omaha REIA, just the various meetups that I've done. So like, people just skip over these, right? They're just like, I need to get to one of those. And we harp on this over and over again, but I just think you're severely handicapping yourself by not networking at events like this that are made for it, literally. Like, you would have to go 5-10 years just going through your normal life to get the same amount of interaction you're going to have in one spot with the people that are interested in the subject matter, right?
In a good meetup, I mean, a great meetup is just going to have good people, and that's why you should be going anyway. But a great meetup is going to have great content. Like next month, we're speaking in tenant law. I'm bringing a specialist in just on tenant law,
which everybody's going to have questions about. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And he works for the board of realtors, and so he's going to come. And then March, I have Jason Dries coming to come speak.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
I mean, like, come on, like this, you've got to come to these events.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good stuff. I was just curious, since you guys both been rolling in the REIA world for a while now, if somebody wanted to start one of those, because I get a lot out of it personally, and I'm sure others do too. But let's talk, Jose, about Spark development. I'm curious, you've been through this. This is, I believe, just a local program in the Omaha, Nebraska market, but I believe there are others.
There's a version of it.
There's a version of this. So Spark Development Academy is basically if you want to be a real estate developer, you enroll in this, and it's basically like a crash course in how to start a development, how to be a developer. You went through that, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, it was back in 2021, I believe so. And it was the first session going back in person after COVID. And I really did get a lot of it, just the connections there. It kind of gives you like this confidence of actually being able to be a brand new developer, right? I went through it. I bought a fire damaged house. They supported me through it. And the thing is, like, they provide housing for middle income, low to middle income households. And even though your project might be over what you can sell, they pretty much have a little loan forgiveness part of it. So you get paid through your GC and your developer fee, pretty much, right?
Okay.
So once you are into a project and approved, and it's all green light from Spark, you kind of have like your profit secured. So that's the nice thing about it because of the loan forgiveness part.
So they basically will sanction a project then, more or less. So do they help with permitting and things like that, or no?
You're in charge of pretty much everything.
Okay.
You're in charge of everything. You're in charge of finding your GC, your resources to get the project from start to finish.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
They help with the kind of as a resource for underwriting. They have the Spark Capital side of things, where you submit your project. You give them all the documentation that they need in order to be able to underwrite the project. And once they see that it's a feasible project on their side, then they give you the green light for it. And for example, in parts of North Omaha, where if you're doing a new development, it's hard to sell at a profit, right? Because of how much you have to put into it and
the location. Yeah.
And the location. You're basically, the bottleneck is the appraisals, right? Like, your house is only worth as much as the other houses around you. So even if you spend $250,000 on a home, but the house next door sold for $200,000,
you over improved and you're going to be upside down.
Yeah. But that's where Spark comes in, and they promote new development in those areas by giving you the loan forgiveness part of it. So I actually bought a house that had 5 lots on it. I sold the house. I kept the lots. I broke even pretty much on the house, but I kept the lots. So now I'm set for new development this 2025.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to do that to get my Fire 4 unit up and running.
Yeah. Oh,
Good.
man. That's really interesting. I had been kicking around going through that program. I just never did. And I've just been, one of my business partners, Andrea Foley, went through that. So did Sonny Macias.
Yeah.
And then a few other, investors we know around town. I just thought it was really interesting. And I didn't know that about, like, you could kind of use them as a backstop with your underwriting and kind of fact checking your file on whatever the project is. So that's cool. Anybody catching this, if you live in the Omaha market, and this sounds interesting to you, it's Spark Development Academy. They're located, I think, in kind of like, I don't know, 114th and something L, maybe. I don't know.
No,
LQ.
they're downtown. They're
Okay, I was way off.
Yeah. They're by it was TD Ameritrade Park before. And I don't
Schwab Field.
Yeah. They're close to that location.
Oh, by the way, this is off topic, but I have a T-shirt that I got as a gift for Christmas this year that says Omaha Rays on it. And do you know why it says that? I was going to wear it today, but I wore it yesterday. Not that I care, obviously, because I just came from the gym. But the Tampa Bay Rays, their stadium got destroyed during the one of the 2 hurricanes that were really bad.
Is this going to happen?
I don't know yet. Okay. They are looking for a place where the Tampa Bay Rays can play their home games until the stadium gets completely finished, which is going to take, I think, most
2
of the
years.
season. Is it 2?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so Omaha was one of the on the short list of possible locations where the players could come and call this home. I thought that was really going to be cool. I'm a huge Major League Baseball fan. So this was like, I was like, sweet, man, we could probably get some staying in our Airbnbs and stuff. I could fanboy on and, get autographs and whatever.
Huge.
Yeah. So, but it'd be also cool just to go to games. So I had a T-shirt given to me. My wife found it somewhere. It was like a Ray Gun downtown, that weird store. They sell, kitschy stuff and clothing. Anyway, it says Omaha Rays on it, just like the Tampa Bay logo. So pretty cool. I'm lobbying for this. It's going to happen.
And it'd be nice, especially like you mentioned for the Airbnb part.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait. I want to transition here real quick, though. You mentioned fires, but you just had a really nasty fire at one of your properties, right?
Right. Yeah.
What happened, man?
Man. So I bought these properties. I bought a portfolio together. This was one of the properties. I bought them back in October. And luckily, as soon as we buy them, especially if you're being financed by liquid lending, you have to have, insurance in place.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, you're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. You know, I should get some commission out of that. But so
we're getting it. Don't worry.
no, I'm talking this way, not that way. But so this tenant, sketchy tenant, I gave them a non-renewal as soon as we bought the place. They were supposed to be out in November. They didn't get out. They were just not playing ball, you know. And unfortunately, in the middle of November, this other person came in, a friend, family, or guest, or I don't know what it was, and she was playing with like some sanitizing stuff, lit it up, and the house caught on fire. And she was detained. She's in jail right now. And I was not notified about this until a week later by the tenant. She's like, hey, at midnight on a like Friday or something like that. She's like,
The best time you want to get this news.
I know.
Tell me on Monday.
I know, especially on a
Yeah, right.
Friday.
You waited a week. I was just like, wait till the morning. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. I was having a drink, celebrating, so I just had a drink on the opposite side. You know, the other feeling. No, but no. And she texted me like super late. By the way, the house caught on fire, and I'm like, oh shoot, you know. Not to say any other major words, but
Oh, it's all right. We have editors.
okay, perfect. And then I went there the next day. I set up a camera. There's this really nice cameras that they're Eufy, EUFY.
I have one of those in an apartment building.
And they come with like a little chip that you can buy $12 a month, and then you get an images sent to your phone, notifications and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need Wi-Fi or power because they come with the solar power. I put that up on a tree, and I boarded up the house. Next day, I was watching the final Mexican soccer game, and suddenly I got a notification on my phone on the firehouse, and there was a guy just looking through the stuff and on the floor, and then he saw the camera, reached for a 2x4, and then
he hit the camera?
Yeah, he hit the camera, brought it down. Next thing you know, you see the camera just like flying through the air. I called the cops at that point, and they're like, are you available? And I'm like, not really. I'm watching this final soccer game. I prefer. I mean, the house is already, you know, severely damaged. What else? I'll just meet you there tomorrow. And yeah, I mean, right now insurance seems like they're good with it. I have a $1,500 deductible, so
nice.
It's gonna work out like a champ at the end.
Hey, quick question on the camera that you had mounted to the tree. That's a Wi-Fi camera though, right? Did you have like no?
It's got
How
a
does it
little
work?
chip.
It's the chip is the data.
Yeah, it's a SIM card.
Oh.
It's a SIM card that it's basically standalone.
I didn't know that. That is really cool. I looked for years for a product like that on vacant houses that you could just put up anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Put it up high so nobody hits it with a 2x4 or whatever. But I didn't know they had that now, because I was like, this was 10 years ago. I was desperately searching for that because I had a couple of break-ins, AC units stolen, blah blah blah. And I was so frustrated because that didn't exist back then. It was like you could get like a trail cam, how like hunters have that. It'll just take a picture if they see movement. But I was like, that's not what I need. But that's really cool. So anybody listening to this, check. It's EUFY.
Yep.
EUFY. Oofy. What a weird name.
And how much is it?
It's like $199.
Yeah, and I have the Wi-Fi version of that. I actually busted a crackhead that was breaking into a storage room at one of my apartment complexes. He was just hauling shit out of there like constantly.
Yeah.
Turns out he had like a master key or whatever. So we actually found out who he was. And quick funny on that, not all of them, but there were some like vigilante residents that were living in this building, and they had this plan. He was coming in and stealing like packages, and he was breaking into the storage room. He's like hauling out like window air conditioners and tools and crap like that. I was so pissed because I remember the story. Yeah, you get notified, right? So I'd get a video notification. I was like, there's literally nobody should be in that storage room unless I'm doing a rehab and one of the guys is storing whatever. And I look, and it's this total, like, dude has a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. It just looks like a total POS, like crackhead. And I was like, ugh. I was just so mad watching that video. I watched it over and over, and I'm like, that mother effer. And all these tenants like band together and they're like, let's beat this guy's ass. And so they were literally going to kill this guy.
A mob squad.
Yeah. And so finally we were like, all right, let's calm down, pump the brakes here. And we got the cops involved and whatever. But that's really cool about the wireless version or the non-Wi-Fi version of that. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Strongly recommended for sure. And I actually had another incident at one of my Airbnbs, like two guys, another lady with their dog. So they brought the pet. It was
what? They broke in with a dog?
Yeah, they did. They had one of the guys went around the corner and he got in through a window, opened the door. And luckily the day before I had set up a camera in the kitchen, just pointing straight into the door. And the guy is like, hey man, I got in, but there's like cameras everywhere. And they're like, oh,
you heard him say that?
Yeah. I heard him say that. The lady with the dog, she's like, screw this, I'm out. She walked out and the other guy reached out for the camera. Like you could see the guy's face reaching for the camera and he turned it. Luckily he didn't just busted it.
Yeah.
So I still have the camera. But I called the cops. This was like a 6 a.m. I woke up at 7 a.m. to feed my kid. He was crying and then I saw the notification. I'm like, oh shoot. So it's been interesting. I tell my cousin I could probably be like an influencer just uploading this kind of videos.
Yes. There's one account that I follow on Instagram. It's called the Squatter Squad. You ever seen this?
No, I have not.
I think it's in California. Could be Phoenix. I'm not sure which one, but that's their whole jam is they go and they get squatters out of people's properties, like they get paid for it. And so there's these crazy situations that happen. It's pretty entertaining. They have all these videos they're constantly uploading.
I'm definitely gonna check this out.
Yeah, Squatter Squad.
Yeah.
For anyway, listening to this, check them out on Instagram. It's pretty humorous.
I had somebody on my Airbnb that actually, I don't know which state it was, but they went through every chair and unscrewed one screw.
What?
Yeah, like the backrest of one chair unscrewed.
Some people
I think a kid did it.
Some people just want to watch the world burn, man. Like who does that? You go in and unscrew one screw.
Well, they did to my couch too. They loosened one of the peg legs,
Yeah,
and then it was like a fold out bed. And then, of course, the next person that sat on it, the whole thing besides it just falling, it broke all the woodwork in there. Oh, yeah. And it's only like 4 months old. And I had to actually hire a guy to go in there and take the damn thing apart and then redo all the woodwork internally. I'm like, oh.
Who was this? Was a tenant?
It was somebody staying in the Airbnb.
Oh, I was just picturing somebody like they're hiring like a hitman, but they're like, all right, so you want me to take care of this? And they're like, no, I don't want you to kill him. Okay, do you want me to just like beat him up and mess him up real bad? No, do you have anything less than that? They're like, well, we have this thing where we can slightly inconvenience them and make them uncomfortable. Yes, let's try that. And it's like the tiered pricing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's how my mind works, Ted. All right, let's talk about the Peña Street of Dreams. In South Omaha. This is pretty freaking cool. I mean, you're the first guest we've had on that's done something like this. What was this deal?
So it's kind of weird because actually I had marketed to them beforehand.
Like direct mail? You sent them letters?
Cold calling.
Okay.
I cold called.
Like a company that owned these properties?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And when I noticed all of those danger, close, do not enter type of signs on those houses, you can actually see them.
Can you give like the listeners an idea of what houses you're talking to about, or people that are not from Omaha, the area and what was happening with the area and how these houses became available?
So there was a big push for a major development in South Omaha, south of downtown area. And they were going to invest millions and millions of dollars developing this sports complex in that area.
By the way, I was super excited about this because I have Airbnbs all around there, and I was really, really hoping for this.
Me too. It was,
way to go, Jose.
I know. I'm sorry.
Well, they blamed inflation, the reason why this deal didn't happen.
I'm not sure if it was inflation or just the people in that area. Some of them didn't sell. That could be it,
so you had some They had some holdouts on getting the parcels acquired.
I think so. I'm not entirely sure what brought the project down, but they had all of these other houses that they bought and then no project, right? So they did pivot. They are doing some development in that area. It's not going to be a major sports complex. It's going to be something else, tailored more towards like I think like contractor base and offices and stuff like that in that area, which makes sense. There's a lot of construction personnel in that area. So then I came into these houses, and the funny thing is, like, they had all these code violations on those houses, right? People were going into those places. There's literally no ACs in any of the houses. There's a lot of broken windows. There was a lot of graffiti. So the graffiti cleanup crew from the city had to constantly go in there. And the thing is that it's because it's a great real estate piece because you can see it from 75.
Highway 75.
Highway
Yeah.
75. So it's you can see it, right? I thought about actually putting up a billboard in that area, Jose buys houses or something like that. So maybe we'll see if that comes to fruition.
I have some bad news for you about billboards. You can talk to me after this, but yeah, it's not as easy as you would think. But go ahead.
Yeah. We'll have to have an offline conversation about that. But I have quite a few houses in that area, Poppleton, Reese. So they're really close to that location. And I've met with the inspector several times, and he's like, "Hey, Jose, I know you've been cleaning up this area. I gave your number to these people because we've been on them about those code violations and stuff like that." And suddenly I get a call from California. I didn't answer it. They left the voicemail. It was one of their partners saying, "Hey, we got your information." And I'm like, "Great. I've been trying to reach you guys for the last,
Year.
about your car warranty." No, I'm playing. And we had a conversation. I went and looked at these houses, and I pretty much gave them an offer. And the really nice thing about this is that they were really, really, really flexible with me. They're like, "Well, you know what? If you can get to this number, we can make it happen." And I'm like, "Well, I can't really get to that number because I still have the financing part of it, and then I have to renovate all of these places. I have to put a lot of money into these places because every single place needs work. Every single place has code violations." And I'm like, if you do the financing, I can get you that number. And they're like, "Well, how much interest?" And I'm like, "Well, the lowest the better." And they're like, "How about 0% for 4 months?" And I'm like, "Let's do it.
Wow.
Let's do it."
And then after 4 months, what?
Refinance. So that 4 months is my runway to success. No, I'm playing. My runway to do the renovations and be able to refinance. So right now we're at the 3rd month, and I just started the refinance of 6 of them.
Wow.
So,
How many did you buy?
9.
And they're all in the same street.
They are.
As a kid, I always thought, I had a house I grew up in South Omaha. It's on 15th Street. It's an Airbnb I renovated recently. And I always thought as a kid, I was like, I'm going to own this whole street one day. And then I'm going to put a white fence in front of all these properties because it was kind of a lower, end area there. And I'm going to put these trees on everyone, and it's going to look the same going all the way down. And it's going to look so cool. And then we're going to make movies on this street. I mean, it's like, this is like, I was thinking as a kid, I think all of us kind of have that vision of maybe owning all the houses on one street. It's pretty cool. Like what vision do you have for this street in the end?
So they're all going to be rentals.
Yep.
They're all going to be rentals, but we're renovating them like super nice. Yeah, it's just bringing up the community with it, right? Because a lot of people in that area were like, yeah, there's people coming in and out that we don't know of, and it's an area that's pretty secluded. So if you're going in there, it's because you either live there or have some kind of business going in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's all kinds of random cars going in there. And that's what I put actually another Eufy camera, like pointing at the whole street, literally, to catch the people doing the graffiti and all kinds of stuff.
How many houses are on that street?
8. And then I got one next door.
Okay.
On the next street.
So you own every single house on that one street?
Not all of them.
Well, you said you own 9 and there's 8 houses on the street?
No, I own 8 on that street.
Yeah.
But there's probably like 14.
Okay.
So probably half of the street.
Now, when you get done with these, what kind of plans do you have to narrowing in on those remaining ones?
I think those were the people that held out.
Yeah.
Yeah, though I don't think they're gonna sell.
But you're gonna put them on your marketing plan.
Yeah, for sure.
Man,
yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but you're supposed to put up hotels now once you get 4 houses on the same street. So I think that might be something you want to look into here. Hotel development.
Yeah, that would actually be. Well, Martha Street is right there too, so there's really easy access to that location.
That would be a great potential for a nice apartment complex. So that whole lot that they were trying to buy with that vacant land that's there too.
Oh, are you talking on the other side of the interstate? Yeah. I don't know, man. That's a weird shaped lot. It's very skinny. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
But
the triangle.
yeah, I always had this. Getting back to your thing about being a kid and fantasizing about developing a whole street. Like I always wanted to have a monopoly. I always wanted to have three houses on the same street. You know, to get like the game. It's nobody cares. I did get it. I have it right now.
Are they all side by side?
No, they're not.
Okay.
They're on the same street, but not the same adjoining lots.
Yeah.
No. I had 2 side by side ones, but three of them. Yeah.
I remember I found when I was finding properties for the Schlickburns, I found a package, and I think it was 9 houses also, and it was in North Omaha, and I think 7 of them were on the same street on the same side of the street, and they were all side by side, and there was a couple that were across the street from it. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I'm like, you can renovate them all, make them look like the best part about this is our contractors can go from house to house to house.
That's what I'm finding, like that's super flexible, right? Like I went to Floor & Decor and they had a massive palette of just tile. And I'm like, I'll buy the whole thing. How much can you do it for? And I bought like a whole bunch of tile for like $250. And I took it to one of the houses and the guys just go to that house, pick out the tile, backsplash. It's been working out super nice with that.
Hey, you were talking about how you had basically pestered the owners or tried to on buying those. What have you found over the years has been your most effective or favorite way of generating leads or getting deals?
Buying off the inspectors, obviously.
Yeah. Wait for a call from California.
It's I think networking, being kind, being nice to people, being honest with people has just been super, super good for my business.
So word of mouth.
Yeah. Word of mouth. Like I bought another portfolio. The funny thing is like I bought that portfolio together with like another 16 property portfolio in the same month in October of last year, 2024. And that was through, just word of mouth communication with this person. I had bought like 3 flips from them before, and just following through and, having the backup of liquid lending. It's like if somebody brings me properties, I can close on them if they're a good deal, because liquid lending, that's what they do. They fund good deals. Right.
This is an unpaid advertisement here. So.
Right. I'm hoping to at least get a lunch out of this. I don't know.
Yeah, we can do that. Your favorite Mexican restaurant we'll go to.
And I'll take you out for a cigar.
Oh, okay. There you go.
All right.
There you go.
With an iced tea, unless it's in February.
Okay.
Yeah. I might join this meeting. I haven't had a cigar in a long time. So
there you go.
Got to pick a vice since we're doing dry January here.
Nice.
Now, I was thinking about probably 5 years ago, I got a random call. I had this 6-plex that I owned in Omaha. There's an area that we always call Midtown, and it's kind of like Midtown is a moving target because like the city keeps expanding westward. But I owned one along a kind of a divider road called Saddle Creek in Omaha, and it was in the path of a development that they're doing right now. So they broke ground on it already. They're doing a whole bunch of crap along Saddle Creek. And I got a random call from a developer, kind of same as you. I get these just random calls all the time that I don't want to answer. You know what I mean? Because it's always a telemarketer generally. But I answer, and this guy goes, first thing he says to me, he says, hey, I'm Jim, whatever. And I think I'm your buyer for your 6-plex on 49th and Mayberry. And I go, well, you've got my attention. And, because I was like, I could sell that. I was kicking around. I wasn't like, I don't get really attached to properties. So like, make me a good offer, and I'm listening. And he comes and he goes, and I bought it. I think I bought it for like $280, and it's all brick, all 2-bedroom units, big units. And now I'm kicking myself for selling it because I was like, that was stupid. I sold it for way less than I could have. But he offered me he goes, I think I'm going to give you a number that you're going to like. And I'm like, all right, fire it at me. And he offered me like $320 or something. And I had owned the property for like 2 or 3 years or whatever. It wasn't a great cash flowing property even though I bought it for $280. I just, for whatever reason, we just had turnover and whatever. And I go, look, man, I appreciate that, but we're not even playing the same sport, let alone in the same ballpark. That's exactly what I said to him. And he long paused, he's like, okay, well, tell me what sport we're playing then. And I go, I was thinking more along the lines of 420 is the number, in which now 420 is pretty damn cheap for a brick 6-plex.
Right.
but he did it. He's like, all right. And I was like, damn it, I should have said 450 or 500 or something. But yeah, I ended up selling it to him. And I was curious about that because that's the first time I'd ever had a developer call me with that approach. And he just cold called. And he was very good. I mean, he was very good on the phone. But it made me think that I think there's not maybe many people that have that skill where they could go out and hit the phones. Maybe they're really good at doing the actual development work, but you have to have a sales guy on the front to acquire parcels if you're trying to assemble a big area, right? Yeah. And like you said, that whole effort got torpedoed with the developer you bought it from. So I that's a big risk, right? And I think that's probably something that people that are in real estate investing that have maybe always dreamed about developing or maybe thought they wanted to do it, they're like, yeah, there's so many problems with that. Is there anything you've learned as a way to mitigate that risk, or is it you just haven't been through that side of it to understand?
I haven't really intentionally pursued kind of like acquiring multiple lots at the same time. In the scenario where I bought the house that had the 5 lots attached to it, I did approach it kind of like I'll sell the house. I don't care if I make any profit on that. What my intent is the lots, and mostly just for the learning opportunity of doing new development, right? Mm-hmm. But I have bought other lots close to one of my properties because I know it's R7 zoning, and then you can build multifamily.
Yep.
And then there's 2 lots right next to it. And that's where I ran into it's not so easy. It's not so easy, right? Because the lot next to me, it's got like city liens for demolition. I think like the lot is probably worth like 25, but it's got a $50,000 lien on it. And then the other one next door, the guy doesn't want to sell. He's been approached by developers. Luckily, I bought the one in the middle, so it's not like they can develop a 30-foot wide front street lot, So
that'd be like a San Francisco style house.
I know,
skinny and 3 stories.
Right. So it is tough to get those pieces together in order to start new development, right? But I do think it's feasible. That's one of the things that I'm trying to pursue this 2025, to do some new development.
One thing this past year that I had never really done before is I'm partners in a land purchase that we did, and this is in a good part of town. It's Northwest Omaha, like 156th and Maple, just south of Maple.
Right.
And we bought like it's like 6.5 acre parcel. And I was like, man, this is so outside of my wheelhouse. Like, this isn't something I get involved in, and everybody's wanting to do it. And I was like, all right, fine, whatever. So we bought it, and we actually got it for $100,000 less than the guy was asking. And it was fast. Like, he put it on Facebook, and we bought it like the next day. And not bought it. We got it under contract the next day and then closed on it and whatever. And then like 2 weeks later, we got an offer. It wasn't unsolicited. We kind of told a few people about it for $100,000 more than we paid for it. And I'm like, dang, this is easy, way easier than flipping. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you don't have to really do anything. I mean, it's just land. And it started really making me think about that, because you have, they always say, like, when you start out, and a lot of the common path is you start in wholesaling, then you get into flipping, then you start buying rentals, and right, there's kind of a natural progression. Mm-hmm. But I never really considered land as something that was flippable, or like that you could turn like that and make margin on. Now it's really made me think of that. You got to look at the zoning of it and see what's possible on it. And can you get things changed as far as zoning restrictions? Yes, but there's process involved. But I think if you start getting comfortable with that, I think there's less, there's less money you got to lay out, because you're not buying any improvements. You're just buying the land. I just think it's an interesting way. And then if you get that under contract, then you can start marketing to developers, and those are easy to find. You can just, it's not like you're building a buyer's list, although you are, right? It's just your buyers are developers. Anyway, tangent over. But no, that's super cool. I've never done what you did with that, and I love being a fly on the wall here, because that sounds like a whole bag of cats that you bought, but fun, challenging. I think you told us before we started recording, you're at 65 rental units now.
Around there, yeah, over 60.
What's the mix? Do you have like primarily single families, multifamilies in there too, mixed use, anything like that? What are your holdings?
Primarily single families, but I got 7-plex, 4-plexes, duplexes, triplexes, so small multi, you could say,
Yep.
and single family, which has been nice.
And short term.
And short term, short term in there as well. So we're looking into different things, just to see what makes sense, get the most juice out of these properties as possible, right? We got some in Midtown that are short term and nestled in between like Benson, Dundee, UNO area, which is midterms. That's what we're looking. That's what we're doing right now, and just to get some better understanding of how to get the most juice, out of the property.
All right, gun to your head, and you had to choose between only short-term rentals or only long-term rentals. What would you pick?
Gun to my head scenario.
How many are we talking here?
I know,
it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but I like the short-term aspect of it because I think they're just sexy. You put this beautiful property together.
And it stays beautiful.
With the cleaners consistently going in there. I like that a lot. I'm actually trying to see if I could get more houses in Midtown.
And you have you said 4 or 5 of those?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got some.
Do you self-manage those?
Yeah, we do. We got into self-managing last year, and it's been fine.
The short terms and your long terms.
Yeah, well, our long terms we've been self-managing since we started.
Yeah.
My wife is doing a lot of it together with another assistant that I hired last year. She's from Mexico. She speaks English. She's my cousin. She lived in Chicago for a long time. She moved to Mexico, and she's helping us out. So we're consistently growing, and they've been helping out a lot. I'm kind of like, I've heard you mention this before. I'm the same way. I like to start a project, get it done, not hear about it again.
That's my man.
Yeah.
We're speaking the same language.
But with short terms, it's not like that.
No.
That project is like screaming in your face every day.
That's my wife. She
screaming in your face every day.
She's like, "Have you sent this person to do this?" I'm like, "No, we will get to it." And she's like, "Well, this day is the only day that you can do it." I'm like, "Okay, I'll send somebody that day." But I just think they're easier to manage from my perspective. My wife probably doesn't think the same, but from my perspective, it's just they stay clean, they stay sexy, and they're nice. The long terms, I like them, but in the location that they're at, like South Omaha and North Omaha, they don't. It wouldn't make sense to have short term in that area for me.
Yeah.
Well, the one nice thing about at least short terms here is if you have a conversion property that doesn't have separate heating systems per unit, you have like a 3, 4, 5 unit, and it's got one heater, for instance, right? Short term is really nice because you're not going through those rental inspections. You don't have to comply with all the new regulations, and you can have the one heater, the one air conditioning system throughout, or the one electrical panel.
Right. Yeah,
So
true that.
you don't need to convert your property, which means you can buy these lower cost opportunities and actually make more money than you would on it as a long term.
There's the other side to that, though. We've had the most issues with our short term on properties that are shared. So like duplexes and conversions. And because of the ratings and because you want to be like the best guy out there, it has been tough to keep those properties as short term because you do get dinged on the reviews for, noise complaints and stuff like that. So for me, I like single family houses for that.
I did just get my first 4-star. And since I've been managing, it was just yesterday. And it was a person that stayed for a month. And I went above and beyond with this person too. And she loved me, but then she gave me a 4-star. And then the reason there were so many 5s, but then there was a 2-star for location. She's like, it was so loud. She's like, between people in the house or in the unit and outside in the street. I was like, just so you know, in the listing, I put in there numerous times on a main street, city traffic noises in a shared unit. I was very transparent with it all in the listing. But
I saw this. It was like a meme or something the other day. Just messing around on social media. It was a screenshot that a doctor had taken of his Google review page, and it said, "Dr. Johnson or whatever literally saved my life. And then his ranking was 4 stars. And the doctor replied, and he goes, well, not really sure what I can do to improve here or something like that. I'm like, geez, man, some people are just hard to please.
They are.
Saved my life, but I woke up kind of groggy.
When you have a midterms day, you don't like provide supplies and everything like that. And then she's like, is there, she asked for like supplies. She asked, toilet paper and paper towels, and she wanted some more cleaning supplies. I'm like, well, yeah, definitely need more cleaning supplies, sure. And then in the end, she's like, wrote amazing, glowing review, nothing negative. And then
4 stars.
4 star.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing with it.
Now, have you ever had to fire a family member?
No.
Do you have that many family members working for you?
So just my cousin.
Oh, okay.
Just my cousin right now, but I haven't had anybody else involved in the family.
I'm only asking that because, like, I've had family members do work for me and work full time for me, and both there, and it's really a commitment. Things change when they start actually exchanging their money for, or your money for their time. Like, things change, life gets in the way. What if they want to leave? What if and there's always, so when you step into that, you have to do it with your eyes open, right? Because you talk about the end first, and that's always the conversation people typically ignore. Right. Like, okay, what happens if things change? You don't want to do this for me anymore. Are we still good? Like, how do you know that? Like, that's the serious conversation you got to have, because family dynamics, man, like, you don't want somebody working for you and then all of a sudden they don't do something you like or whatever, or they aren't quite the employee you thought they would be. Maybe they're a good person, but they're just like lazy or procrastinate or whatever. And then, it changes. Just like money changes everything. You make somebody alone or vice versa, and your dynamic is different. Right. I don't know. I'm always curious on the family dynamics of businesses like that. Like, we had Michael Kramer on, and he had 14 of his family members working for him or something.
Crazy.
That is bananas to me. I'm like, I see my family enough.
But look at the success he's had.
I know you can't argue with it. But I just, there's probably
talking about having some loyal people.
No kidding.
Working for you. I mean,
yeah,
just nuts.
Yeah.
Just a lot of expectations up front. Set those.
Before we get into the failing forward, from episode 5 back in 2021 till now, what do you think has been the biggest life lesson that you've gone through? I mean, you've gone through a lot. You've had your family's changed, your portfolio's changed, your dynamic of what you work on has changed. You're looking to get your real estate license now. I mean, like, the things that your life has just progressed so much in the last few years.
Yeah. It's I kind of just learned that I got to go on my own pace, whether that's fast, certain quarters, whether that's low, the next quarters. I also, I was super big on like resiliency, like going through these hardships and kind of like touching base back on what I talked about in regards to the flips, right? It's like, okay, we've built this up now to the point where it's self-sustainable, with the rental portfolio. So I wanna make sure that I actually get to enjoy the journey as well, instead of just pushing through every single day, because then it is overwhelming. It's a lot of responsibility. You think about it right now, and I've got 60 families living in our places. So it's a lot to consider, right? So for me, it's just like, okay, you've gone through this growth phase at this point. So now go at your pace, do what feels comfortable and also uncomfortable here and there. But it's not necessarily just pushing through. It's the work smarter, not harder type of thing, right? Mm-hmm. So it's learning about that from myself, because I thought I was always just going to be like just massively going through this and just going full throttle. And I learned that in order to be able to just be efficient, you also have to be well with yourself, your family, mentally, all of that stuff, right? Just enjoying the journey, I think, right now. So, for example, like now my wife and I, we talked about like, let's go on a month trip, somewhere outside. The work will be there. We'll continue to work through it. But I've hired also people to be able to help us to be able to do that kind of stuff, right? So it's going through that journey and then just tweaking some things here and there.
Did you ever think that, in 2021 this is where you'd be today?
No, I thought we were going to do 10 properties and then just be happily living and running into the horizon type of stuff. But I
still stepping on the treadmill, doing regular work, but now you decided that you're jumping off this treadmill and that you're going at it full force right now, and that you got this amazing portfolio. You just didn't expect that you were going to have this great success and move so fast, right?
Right.
But if you look at yourself, and I was like, hey, Jose, it's episode 350. It's been another 3 years. I want you back on, man. I mean, if you look at the success you've had in this short amount of time, can you imagine where you could be at that point?
Yeah, and I mean we're not necessarily gonna leave the foot off the pedal type of thing, right? It's we're gonna continue going, but mostly pursuing not just single family, potentially going into like I said, new development, experiencing different kind of stuff. Because I feel like I gotta try different things to see what I like. Single family is great. New development, I think, from my perspective, like I've done a lot of renovations. And they're hard. You never know what you're gonna expect or see behind a wall. And with new development, it might be easier. It might be just a copy and paste scenario. Who knows? I don't know. We'll give it a try. But I'm just excited for newer opportunities and just whatever's new out there.
Awesome. Well, speaking of opportunities, maybe here's one that didn't go well. We have a section that we call
Failing Forward. And this Failing Forward is brought to you by Timber Creek Virtual.
At Timber Creek Virtual, we don't just keep your business running. We take it to the next level. Our virtual and executive assistants handle all the everyday tasks so you can focus on what really matters, growing your business. Need clarity on your financial performance? Our expert bookkeeping services keep everything organized, so you always know where your business stands. With our seamless transaction coordination, you never have to worry about the details. Just close the deal. We've got you covered with cutting-edge digital marketing, proactive lead generation, and expert acquisition management. Plus, we handle the cold calling and messaging too. Let us handle the big C work so you can handle your business. Visit timbercreekvirtual.com/services and see how we can make your business soar.
Still,
you get the gist.
This segment was even around back when you started in episode 5.
Yeah. So when you look back on the last 3.5 years, what's something that, other than the fire and like the cameras and crackheads breaking in and all that, you have something like that you could tell us about that maybe you learned a lesson from?
So I got into a partnership. Amador, he's a great person and everything. We had similar interests, similar background and all of that stuff, right? And we went into it with the best of intentions, like you always do with the partnership. And that's where I learned that I kind of wanted to go on my own pace, right? Like I left my W-2 so that I could do my own thing, right? And just feel comfortable with what I was doing. And I think like when we joined this, we were so green into this that we didn't really necessarily set like the expectations and how do we resolve conflict? How do we resolve or figure out, opportunities? How do we approach these things? We really didn't lay that out as much as we should have. And when it got to the point that we were growing super quick. We like within the first 6 months, I think we had like 16 units. It was going fast.
Yeah.
And then I felt like, okay, I'm the kind of guy that always wants to make sure that I'm carrying my weight, right? So I was always like, okay, I got to make sure that I'm pulling my weight. I got to make sure I show up every day. I got to make sure I do this every day. I got to make sure that, we get through this stuff. And then it just got to the point where I felt like I was back at a W-2, It's just like I was enjoying it, but at the same time, it was just too much pressure, I believe, on my side. So at that point, I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and go our separate ways. And we've started selling our portfolio.
So you didn't dividend it up. You actually sold the stuff off.
Yeah. We're selling it off. And I think we might actually lose money at the end, but it's still a lesson learned. He's been doing great on his side. I'm doing great on my side. And it's nice to see that at the end. but it was just, I felt like for me, a rental portfolio of single family houses on a partnership, it was just too much, I think, for me. So I that's kind of why we decided to part ways. I could see it happening like on a big multifamily property, 85 units or so, 100 units, 30 units, or establishing a partnership for that kind of stuff, and then just concentrating on that, or setting up systems for that. But it's harder to do it on a single family portfolio, I believe.
I think you're dead on with that. Do you think, based on what your experience was with Amador, do you think you would partner again?
Not on single family portfolios.
No.
On bigger deals, I would. I think they're more straightforward, and you could outline, the responsibilities and roles and all of that stuff on something like that. On a single family portfolio, I mean, you're breaking down who's going to be doing the accounting, who's going to be taking care of the operations, who's going to be taking care of the renovations, who's going to be taking care of multiple sides of things, the marketing side of things. So there's a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah. And you did mention, and I know this is more or less common knowledge now, but they always say, you shouldn't partner with somebody that's exactly like you. And not that he was, obviously you guys had differences, but it sounded like you were friends, you had similar goals, you had similar attributes, and then you got into the business and didn't have it all buttoned up on who's doing what. And then, like, to your point, I think when you enter in a partnership too, it's whether it's one person or multiple people, I think when you have an inherent feeling that you want to make sure you are doing enough in the partnership, everybody has to have that same feeling. And the high standard of accountability. Otherwise, there's going to, over time, be an erosion of trust, or just a feeling that just starts to develop where it's like a little bit of resentment because maybe you're doing all the accounting, all the marketing, all the property management, and then like he's doing insurance or something. I'm not saying this applies to your situation, but over time it magnifies. Like, you're 1 degree off, and over 10 years that ends up being a huge difference. But yeah, I think those are tough conversations to have in the beginning, but I think they're probably the most important thing to do.
They are,
Talk about the end first and what that looks like, and then work backwards into who's going to do what. There's no magic bullet for partnerships because life changes too. So your relationship with your partner could be great, and then all of a sudden a life event happens. Maybe that person gets divorced. Maybe they get into a bad habit or like an addiction that takes over, and then everything changes and it throws your whole world into disarray. Now you got to unwind it. And if you have a whole bunch of, like I like what you said there though about choosing a partner on a specific project as opposed to a portfolio, because selling off all of those single families, it's expensive. It's time consuming. Yeah. It's stressful. There's all that.
I just don't understand why you guys didn't just like split up the portfolio and be like, hey, I want this one, you want this one, I want this one. They're the same values. Why don't you guys just?
You know what? We never consider it.
Just clean break.
Even up to this point, like I was managing for 2 months and he was managing for 2 months and so on, just to be able to get to the point where we sell everything. And it's hard to put those up front, the same priority as your own portfolio, right? So that's why it's like, okay, we just gotta sell them off.
Well, plus they're probably not worth all exactly the same too, and it'd be tough to kind of divvy that up and agree that okay, this is actually the value of this house as opposed to the quote unquote appraised value or the bank value they gave you. So I don't know. I get what you're saying, Ted, but I'm not saying I'm right, but I would tend to fall on your side of the fence with that too. Just rip the Band-Aid off, start fresh, sell off with the stuff you hold together, and then start over.
Well, that was a conversation I was having. I just ended a partnership on the 31st, and and we had 2 properties that were there, and I'm like, hey, I go, this one's done. This one's got more value. In the end, they're sitting with about the same money. I'll take this one, take this one, but life happened for the partner, and that wasn't an option, so I ended up having to just take over everything. But I was just like, let's figure out a way just to not deal with real estate, commissions and fees, and just quit claim deed these off. But in the end, I just took them all over, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good conversation about partnerships, though. I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat with this too. So, like you said, Ted, you can maybe your purview on that is, I want to continue holding these. We bought them for a reason. I want to keep them. and you figure out a way to do that. The challenge is, especially if you have numerous, is like you got to come up with the cash to buy them out, or you got to refinance, and that's expensive, cumbersome. Maybe you can't afford it at the time, whatever. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
All right, we got one section left that we have developed. This was hard-hitting research that's taken place over the last 3.5 years to find out exactly what the listeners want to hear, and here it is. This is what we call the OT with Owen and Ted. So you probably heard some of these since you're a loyal fan.
But these are definitely not the questions you were asked
they are not.
episode 5.
They have morphed and grown and taken a life of their own here. So the first question for you, what are you going to write in your first book, and what's it going to be titled?
So for me, we go back into the Hispanic REIA point. I feel like there is a hole not being filled in the Hispanic community. So my book would be in Spanish initially.
Audible version of English, maybe?
Potentially.
Yeah,
that'll be in Spanglish.
with my own accent, in there. But it would be in Spanish, and it would be something along the lines of cómo tener un portafolio de casas eficientemente or something.
How
like
is
that.
the money in your portfolio of houses? Am I close?
How to start your own housing portfolio? Like
okay,
your
I was close.
rental portfolio. Because I feel like and I know a lot of people written about this, but if you can give the people like a template to just follow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and some options here and there, outliers and stuff like that. But if you can outline that for people, I think that they'll be successful. And I don't think a lot of people have that content in Spanish.
Perfect.
Love that. Okay, next question is, we are on the Peña podcast, Nice Casas, and you can interview anyone in the world today. Who's it going to be, and what's the one question you want to ask?
So I got started in real estate because of the 4-Hour Work Week, which is by Tim Ferriss. So just because of the impact that he had on me, and it wasn't necessarily like it's not a full-on real estate book, right? It just gives you efficiency in trying to do this from in a nomad lifestyle. But to me, it kind of like triggered that, right? Like there's other ways to generate revenue and not necessarily be so involved, right? So I really like his 4-Hour work week, I think it is. And the question would be to him is how he has just been able to do so much, not just real estate with the books, the businesses and all of that stuff, how he's been able to manage that, and what kind of triggered those interests in those other avenues or just those other businesses. How did he become interested in that, right? Because to me, like I said, real estate wasn't on my forefront. I got interested in real estate just because of what it can allow me to do, So I feel like I've got potential for something else. I just don't know maybe what it could be. So I like to explore just different things.
I know the book for me, but if you think of the one book that was the most impactful, like, hey, after reading this, it changed how I do with my life. Not necessarily real estate, but is there a book that just really impacted you and just changed your course?
I read a book. I was working at Conagra Foods. I was just getting into real estate investing, and I was reading everything I could on investing and personal finance. And I read one. It's called The Go-Giver, and it's been revised and new editions have come out on it. And basically the premise, and this has been 20 years ago that I read it, but it was like you give without expectation of receiving anything, and it will just come back to you in waves. And that really was impactful for me on how I looked at basically my selfishness and what I could do for other people without expectation of it. And I really liked the idea of it, and it hit home with me. So I would say that from a mindset perspective, really kind of changed the framework of like how I was looking at the world and just in relation to myself. That, and of course, Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was a pretty pivotal book that I read there. Cash Flow Quadrant, and then, but the one is Multiple Streams of Income. That's the one that changed everything for me when I picked that book up by Robert Allen. And he wrote a book called Nothing Down that had several editions, but he was like creative finance, create multiple streams of income in your life. And that was just so foreign to me about building or acquiring businesses and real estate and all these different ways that you can generate stuff instead of just relying on a paycheck. Those were mine.
I had a guy, I was working at Thrasher Basement Systems, and I had a guy named Brian Black. I think I mentioned this in the past. And he gave me the book, The Total Money Makeover.
Oh, yeah.
By
Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey.
Yep. Yeah.
And I was like, and I wasn't much of a book reader either. And I mean, this is probably about 15 years ago. And when he put that book in my hand, I read it, and then I read it again, and then I read it again, and I started highlighting things. I'm like, and it was just like, this is like common sense. I started listening to his radio show. And at the time, like, it just had mountains and mountains of debt, like credit debt, stupid debt, you know?
Yeah, consumer debt.
And then that led into me fixing up our houses, selling our houses, taking the cash, paying off debt, and then kept on upgrading our houses, but taking that equity and then paying off debt until the point where I remember we sold our third house that we fixed up. And I was like, we just paid off over $200,000 in debt in a matter of like 3 years.
Is that when
Nice.
you, like, where were you in regards to real estate? Were you involved then?
No,
Or
not at all.
That was pre real estate. Did that have
We didn't know what we were really doing. We were just fixing up the houses for ourselves.
did that have any, I guess, did that lead to you pursuing a path in real estate, seeing what the power of it could do, even though it was your primary residence?
So I purchased my grandma's house in 2008 just to help her out financially, but also I took a loan, to pay off some debts that I worked out with that equity. The buying an investment property honestly didn't hit until later on when I started I was an investment real estate agent, and just by chance, but checking out foundations.
Yeah.
And it just kind of fell in my lap. So buying the REIA was actually the reason I bought my first flip, because I didn't want to stand in front of everybody and preach real estate investing and not have something that I was doing myself.
Yeah.
I really like looking at points in your life that are a catalyst for big changes or mindset shifts. There's definitely events that happen along the way, or people that enter your life maybe completely randomly, but it goes back to the whole go-giver thing, whether or not you believe in all the the secret and all that stuff. But I don't know, man. I think you're a good person. You work hard, and you do right by other people, and you do what you say you're going to do. I mean, those things alone can lead to opportunities that most people won't have, that don't have that same mindset. So
I agree.
Yeah.
all right. So life's over. We're at your funeral. Ted and I are in the back crying. Somebody is going to be giving your eulogy that day. Who's it going to be? And what do you hope they're going to say?
So on this one, I know he's probably 4 months old and chilling.
He's like, bop, bop, boop, boop. That's eulogy over.
Where's the milk?
Yeah. He's 4 months old right now, but I want to make sure that when he grows up, unfortunately, like, I was raised by my grandma. My mom passed away when I was 7 months old. My dad was in the U.S. I was raised in Mexico. So I didn't really have that father-son, mother-son connection. Well, I did have the mother-son with my grandma, but to me, I love my dad. He's a very caring person, but he was not involved during my childhood, during my teenage years, even like right now in my businesses and all of that stuff. Like, he gives me love, but not a lot of ton of expertise on business and other parts of life, right? So I want to be that hero for my son, right? I want to be that person for my son. Like, there's Mexican corridos, that talk about their dad being their hero type of stuff. So I want to be that person for my son. So I want to, if he can just say, that my dad was a great role model. I love my dad. My dad was my hero. That'd be the best that I could get on my eulogy, and just a great family man.
I wrote this on my notes, and I didn't ask it, but you kept on talking about, like, I'm building a legacy, that I'm going to pass on. How are you going to pass that legacy on? Like, what's your plan there? Are you going to just say, hey, when we're dead, you get all this? Or like, what's, have you thought about this at all?
So, funny thing, my wife and I sat down last night just to talk about, we were working with the lawyer to set up like the will, the living testament, all of that stuff, right? And one of the things that I wrote on that is basically once he turns 21, he's going to get a salary of like equal monthly payments. But if he's going to invest in real estate, then he can be given a lump sum of money for that investment, So to me, it's probably going to get modified here a little bit more. But if he's willing to put that down for a smart investment, he's going to have that legacy that we're putting together right now for him to be able to continue that. But I also want him not to just be like, okay, real estate is the only thing. I want him to explore whatever he's good at. If he's good at art, sports, or whatever it is, like I want him to explore that. That's why we're doing this right now, for him to be able to explore that with having the worry of not being able to for some financial reason or whatever the case is. But I just want to be, I want to make sure that he doesn't hold back on whatever he likes because of financials.
One thing I've really paid attention to, and Ted, you and I, every time this happens, we end up spending some time talking about it. But we've had, I don't know, 12, 15 people on the podcast that were in their early 20s or right out of college or right out of high school, even, that traveled Europe or spent time overseas and went backpacking, that kind of thing. Got a different worldview because they spent time outside of the U.S. Because, let's face it, we're U.S. I mean, we think we're the greatest country in the world, and we are arguably, but we get a lot of hate around the world, and it's interesting to see. It would be interesting to experience that when you were early on, and it would shape the way you look at the world. I think I'm really going to encourage my kids to do that. That's one thing I've taken away from this podcast and just interviewing so many people that are successful, is like a lot of them they did that when they were early on, and you always regret it. I mean, that's one regret I have is not taking the opportunity to do that when you don't have responsibilities, because everybody's selfish and you think you have the weight of the world on your shoulders at every point in your life. Like, oh, there's so much, a teenager, it's like, oh, the world's against me and I have so many responsibilities and school and this and that. And when in reality, it's like, suck it up, man. You're in school. Big deal. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think that's one thing and you have such a small window with it, because then you start getting a job and life gets in the way, and maybe you get a relationship going, and it gets harder and harder to do that. So,
and I think like my childhood has enabled me to appreciate all the good things that I've been able to experience. Like in our house, the bathroom was probably like 40 yards that way, and without a ceiling and stuff like that, So at night, it was a tough
walk.
Yeah, it was bad.
One of the houses I bought, they just put buckets in the room.
Right.
See, there we go.
So that was the nightly ritual, the bucket, and then in the morning you take it back out there. So it's one of the things that you got to experience, and nowadays it's like, I am very grateful for that, because it has given me this, I think, fire inside of me to be able to pursue these other opportunities. Like my realtor always tells me, like, how do you handle pressure, this much pressure? Like I've got so much money lent out right now. Well, lent to me that it's pressure, but at the same time, it's like, if I have this skill set and I'm not, making sure that I'm using it, then I'm doing myself a disservice, because I know my potential. So it's like, I just gotta push forward with it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of skill sets, you probably got this because there's been an amazing mentor in your life at some point. What mentor has had the biggest impact on you, and who do you want to shout out, either personal or business?
So for me, I was that guy in college that I hated to ask for help. I didn't want to put a burden on.
I don't like to do that right now. I get it.
I know it's tough. But so I on the Bigger Pockets podcast, that's what changed the whole thing for me. So Brandon Turner has been huge from that side of things, even though he doesn't even do the podcast anymore.
Were you on the podcast?
No, I haven't. Okay. I haven't. I thought about it.
Did I miss that or something?
No. It was another good looking dude. No. But Brandon Turner has in his books, like I bought all of his initial books just to be able to get that knowledge, and I lent them out to other people. Him on a national level, you could say, or this other top level guy, right? But locally, like, it's been Owen. It's just like, I'm always comfortable reaching out to Owen and being like, hey, buddy, little
Little pat on the back here.
yeah, little
Thanks.
pat on the back.
On the tush.
But he's always been open to having those conversations. I can go to Owen and have those tough conversations as well. I'm like, hey, this is what's going on, and I don't usually bother him unless it's something like I'm like, hey, I really need to brainstorm this kind of scenario right here. And just him being so open, like I told him on his birthday, is like, to me, just having that opportunity to be able to speak to him and get his insight on stuff is just, it's massive, That's great.
Well,
I was certainly not expecting that, so I really appreciate it. I'm blushing, but no, thank you. I'm really impressed with you as a person, and seeing your growth over 3.5 years. It's one thing, man. Like, we have all these people on here on the podcast, and revisiting after a couple of years go by. 2 years is not a long time, but to see just what you can accomplish if you put your nose to the grindstone and try and fulfill your potential is just, it's unbelievable. They're so underestimating what they can do over a 5-year period. And I mean, that's generally the saying. People overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what 5 years can do. But man, when you zoom out and you look at like the moves you've made and what the results are, it's like, wow. I mean, 5 years from now, Jose is going to like look back on you and be like, oh man, that was so cute what you were doing back then. Now look at me. You know what I mean? So 5 years from now, man, I have no doubt you are going to have a massive business and whatever, or maybe you don't want to do that anymore, but it's always cool. So shared kudos here. I appreciate the shout out, but I don't need it. I mean, that's, I consider us friends. So anytime you want to come and talk about scenarios, I'm always down, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with who Brandon Turner is, tune into episode 60 to hear Brandon Turner, actually our highest listened to podcast that we've ever done.
I see what you did there. That was nice.
Yeah. So check that out.
Okay.
Last question I personally have for you is, after going through this, you see this new format that we have. If you were to recommend one person to be on the podcast that we haven't had before, who would it be? And let's give him a shout out.
So it would be Tyler Austin. He's got a software that I use, REI Sift, and he built this from scratch. And he's an investor himself. He's got a group of individuals. He's got a group. I'm part of that group, and we meet on a weekly basis. And it's been great because it gives me insight into what other people are doing. It gives me this group of support that you need in real estate, because it can be isolating, just yourself doing this type of stuff. So he's built this great community and like I said, a great product. REI Sift, if you guys haven't looked into it.
No, I wrote it down here though. I'm definitely going to check it out.
Yeah. And he's got just a ton of knowledge. He's also got that software background. So I just like talking with him too.
Do you ever mess around with software development anymore? Or are you kind of like, I am done with that chapter in my life?
I haven't, but it's one of the things that I like to do in the future, right? Like not necessarily myself write the software, but hire out a couple of people and then just build some piece of software. Because I've got the understanding of the software development lifecycle, and getting a product out there. The MVP type of stuff, right? Get a minimum viable product. So that's where I see myself also putting some time in the future. Not right now, but it'd be interesting to see that. It'd
be kind of like being a developer in a real estate project, right? It's because you're overseeing it, you're making sure all the entitlements are done, all the backbone of the whole project is in place, the permitting and whatever. Kind of the same thing with software. You got to make sure your business processes are gathered and you figure out, like what the software is supposed to do. And then you hire the people to actually do the work. So yeah, it's kind of, see what I did there? Title all that together.
I love how you titled.
All right. Well, speaking of tying it together, one last question for you, Jose. What can our listeners do to support you? What's the best way to reach you? Are you looking for anything in your business right now?
Yes. More portfolios.
Okay. So you like packages of houses, small multifamily, that type of thing?
Yeah. I like it because it has enabled me to just put my head down and then get those houses out as soon as possible, right? Instead of just looking for the next deal.
Oh, yeah. You're buying them in chunks, so you have your whole 6 months taken care of.
Right. With these houses, it just allowed me to like not necessarily like I said, just be looking out for the next deal. Instead, concentrate on putting these projects out as soon as possible. So if anybody's got portfolios out there that they need some value add scenarios, I'm not looking for turnkey rentals. That's where I excel at the value add part. So like I said, I actually have 4 guys full time now working with me. So I got to keep them busy. And at this point, I think portfolios are a great way to do that.
I got one.
Yeah, Ted's got one.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to talk, let me know.
All right.
Awesome.
So, well, thank you so much for coming out. First off, we canceled on you because we went out for Owen's birthday, and
sorry, not sorry.
So thanks for being flexible with that. And I'm just really excited about this because the first 10 people we had on were some of our closest friends.
Yeah,
and the people that we look up to or excited what they're doing. And to have you back on is just, completes that circle. So we look forward to having you again in a couple of years and then revisit again to see how much growth you did, kind of go along with what you said after 3 years. Look what you've done. Can you imagine where you're going to be in another 2 to 3 years? It's just amazing. So you're an inspiration to the community and the people around you. You got this new beautiful son. Your family's growing. You're growing up. I mean, how old are you now?
35.
35.
Yep.
Yeah. And so we're excited to be part of this with you. And for listeners, definitely reach out to Jose. Find his social medias. He's an open book. If you're here in town, definitely go to one of his meetups. He has a great group there. And he does come to our meetups quite a bit, as long as he's not changing diapers. But
or putting out fires in his rentals.
Yes. But with that, Owen Dashner, we see us out.
On behalf of REIA Radio, Aiden Bear, and Ted Kosh, I'm Owen Dashner. You've been listening to Jose. I like my houses like I like my women, 9 at a time. Peña, signing off.
This episode is also brought to you by PropStream and Magic Door.
That's gonna get me in trouble. I don't know where you got that vibe from.
It was right at the end. I just that was right, literally right at the end. I don't know why. Something's wrong.
9 out of 10. Oof. I haven't really put a lot of brain cells behind this.
Well, Ted and I don't either. Yeah. So it's not really a prerequisite for having a podcast.